my name is Camille. I'm from New Brunswick, New Jersey. I'm a second-year occupational therapy student. I hope to graduate in May of next year. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I identify as bisexual and cis. And I also have been a part of Salus's ambassador program and also serve on DEI committee. I think a lot of allies are very interested in learning more about what it means to have a marginalized identity, regardless of whether they are part of the queer community or not. A lot of allies that I've come across want to learn so much. In doing so, they often always conflate people's experiences with a lesson. And most of the time, we're coming to you with our experience just to be seen and heard and not to educate you. So a lot of the frustration that I've seen over the years is my friends turning into, people that are just students, people that are only using or seeing me in one way as a person or as a resource for them to grow in their allyship. And I just want allies to remember that we are human beings, that we aren't just for consumptions. We aren't just for you to have a bigger character arc in your life, but that we actually have a lot to offer outside of just being an educational resource for you. So that's my one thing that I've been trying to learn, as I also try to be an ally and stand in solidarity for other groups, but also for my friends who have reached out to me in the past couple of months asking me questions. You forget to realize that we were friends before I was your resource. I feel as though Salus has a decent amount of people who are interested in standing in solidarity with the queer community. I just would love to see a little bit more action behind the intent. I love the resources that I've been taught throughout my program in occupational therapy about how to be a better healthcare professional to the queer community, but I'm not sure about other programs doing that same thing. I know SLP definitely, hands down, are waves ahead than even our OT program is, because they have a lot of trans educators on, not on their staff, but like as resources in their clinics. And in that way, they're exposed to more and learn more about cultural humility. But I would love for Salus to start more initiatives that are inclusive. More initiatives that aren't just about educating, but also about celebrating. So I think that that's the direction that I think we're heading as a university. Hopefully we start to see more action and more proactive work rather than reactive work. I love how we come together. I mean, I love being Black and I also love being bi. And those two communities often come together in a very magical way that I enjoy. And that our experiences with religion, our experiences with socioeconomic status, or with our whole entire subculture is just so unique. And it's such an interesting intersection to be in. I love being in community with people that enjoy listening to music, that enjoy the little things that other people take for granted just because they are cisgender, just because they are straight. They don't understand the nuances of everything that we go through as being Black and queer that we often have to think about. So it's really, really special to me being in this intersection because we have an opportunity to break the mold literally every day that we exist. We are on the margins of society. And even though we're outsiders in both the Black community with homophobia and then also in the queer community because of racism, we have found to be strong in that, to find a inner strength already. And I just love Black queer people. It's just such a magical place to be in. So that's my favorite part, being in community and joining up and meeting up with Black queer people. In Salus itself, literally just the president of Sagas and I, we quickly found each other throughout orientation. And we just quickly found that we were the only ones that were out or that I know of. It's just us two. And I find that in my community outside of Salus, there are very, very few. I mean, excuse me, I had a lot of carryover from my undergrad, where there were a lot of Black queer people on my campus. So I was able to find community that way. But within Salus, no. I was closeted up until 19. I didn't have the opportunity to be out and proud until I got to college. Around my sophomore year of college, I realized that I was different, but I didn't know what exactly. And that's when I went to the queer club on my campus and started listening and talking, not necessarily joining the executive board, but being around for events, asking questions in that space, and then also creating friendships outside of that and being friends with a lot of the people in that club. So up until, from my sophomore year of college up until my senior year, that was when I was heavily involved in not necessarily the queer club on campus, but collaborating with the Black Student Union and queer club to come together and plan events and stuff like that. So it was not the same journey as Sean in the slightest, but it was definitely similar in the fact that I was starting to question why we weren't visible in these spaces that I have always been in. And I know that people like me exist, but I just never seen them. So from there, seeing the lack of visibility made me want to push to create more spaces for us to be in. I'm going to say Audre Lorde. Today, it changes constantly. Audre Lorde, I just finished her memoir called Zami. It's a biomythography of her life. And I think she wrote it when she was 35. But that book, it encompasses, first of all, I didn't know Audre Lorde was Caribbean American like I am. Both of her parents were from Guyana, and my parents are from my father's from Jamaica and my mother's from Barbados. So a lot of the language in the book is familiar to me. A lot of her experiences of being out to herself, but not necessarily coming to that realization because of her upbringing, that was familiar to me. Audre Lorde, her life and legacy, it's just so vast. You can't, people don't know about her poetry. They only know about the quotes that she says. You know, you can't dismantle the master's house with the master's tools. That's the Audre Lorde quote that everybody knows. I feel like there is so much more to her life that we don't know about simply because she just didn't get the notoriety that, let's say, Angela Davis has gotten. And I feel as though that's just been a huge, huge disservice. She's the blueprint for Black lesbians everywhere, Audre Lorde. So that's who I look up to. It's the suicide rates, mental health and suicide. Bisexual kids make up almost 60% of suicide attempts in the country. And it's such a tough spot because suicide almost always is a comorbidity of houselessness, of homelessness, being kicked out of their homes due to who they are. And I find that the more I research it, the more I realize that there are so many people out there who cannot move safely, even in the progression of mainstream acceptance of queer people. There are still young people across the country who are still considering suicide, who are still getting driven out of their homes. And so as healthcare professionals, our role in that is not only tolerance, it's not civility, it's actively creating and reimagining what healthcare looks like for these folks. It's the offhand comments of just ladies and gentlemen, or, you know, just saying, hey, when are you going to start dating a guy? Hey, when are you going to get involved with growing out of your tomboy phase? All of these things are slights that a lot of healthcare professionals don't even think about in our day-to-day conversations about gender, about sexuality, that we need to start literally reimagining because it's so hard. Gender, everything in this country is gendered. It's unreal how much social conditioning goes into reinforcing that binary, reinforcing heterosexuality. So I feel like there needs to be an active not reactionary, unlearning of these harmful ideas, and starting to teach parents that, yes, you may have been raised differently. You may have come from a different culture. You may not come to a point in your life where you're going to celebrate their queerness. You're not going to celebrate their gender. However, you have a responsibility as somebody's parent. You have a responsibility as somebody's caregiver. You brought them into this world, and you have to be responsible for them. And I feel as though as healthcare providers, we take an apathetic approach to that. All the programs at Salus all have to deal with family systems, and you can't talk about family systems without talking about homophobia. So if that's the role that we want to take on in being people first and being client centered, then these are the risks and thoughts that we need to start thinking, and not waiting for others to take up the mantle for that. So that's my soapbox moment for healthcare. I realized that in healthcare, especially listening to reproductive rights in the debates, everyone talks about abortion in a way that only women get pregnant. And we know that not to be true. Men can get pregnant. Non-binary people get pregnant. So abortion is one issue that immediately jumps to mind for me, but also talking about who gets the right respect, who gets the right treatment based on what their gender is. And I think we need to delve a little bit deeper into how people living with disabilities don't get the care that they need. And it's part of the reason is because we don't understand that people's gender is directly influencing their health. And if we're talking about mental health in this population, we don't do a good job of supporting them either. And we know that mental health can't be separated from physical health. They're intertwined. Healthcare providers, I feel like we fall short in affirming and creating an inclusive space for trans people, period. A lot of the times we think that we know more than we do, and that often always ends up with us shooting ourselves in the foot. I'm not sure how specifically we need to come up with a solution to change that, as I'm thinking as an optometrist or as an audiologist. But I know with OT, the issue that we've come across is people having one name on their chart and it's not matching the person you see in front of you, and you don't know how to go about asking for their correct pronouns, correct names, how they present. And at this point, we just need to not care. We need to not care about that uncomfortability that we feel, because almost always they are feeling 10 times more uncomfortable than we are in just existing. So I wanted to try and find more resources. One of the alums of our OT program created a website called LGBTQOT.com that has resources for occupational therapists to list and read about in order to get a better grip on how to treat this population in healthcare. It does not matter. There's nothing that we need to know about somebody's gender in order to treat them. I don't understand. If there are any risks or precautions that somebody has, family history is a great indicator. Talking to the client is a good indicator. Running the tests that you need to run. That's, for me, it does not matter. Take the whole question off. I would say yes. I know for OT, there are a lot of healthcare networks that are Catholic and Christian, and they have very, very strict limitations on what you can say to a client about sex, sexuality, gender. So I know for a fact that if I was to be out under a Christian-based or Catholic-based healthcare or hospital, that would be a very, very high risk for me to get financially hurt or, deal with some type of discrimination in the workplace that a lot of my straight classmates won't have to worry about. I feel like there are some that's just one part of it. But I feel like the constant imposter syndrome of always being in rooms where you feel like you're the only one, when more likely than not, you're not. But just that cognitive belief, that often stops new grads, new queer grads from believing in themselves. We already are at a disadvantage because we don't have the affirmations that we constantly need as queer people. But to start into a new position where you're in casual conversation with a client and they're asking you about your family and all of these things, you hesitate. You think twice before answering the question, or you try and come up and fabricate some part of your life because you don't know what this client is going to do or say. And that's something that I constantly fear and am anxious about when I enter the workforce eventually. For me, I hope to see universal health care in my lifetime that is free and accessible to everyone. First of all, I believe that there shouldn't be any stipulation or restriction on anyone getting the assistive technology that they need, getting the insulin that they need, getting the gender affirming surgery that they need. The money is there for us to be able to provide this care to people. We just refuse to do it. And frankly, I know in the next 10 years, it's still not going to happen in the way that I imagine it, where everyone can get whatever they need to live a high quality of life. But that's my dream. My dream is to just not have to worry about walking into a specialist office and saying, oh my God, can I afford the copay? Like that's 10 years from now for me. I'm trying to focus on that so I don't look at all of the other 10-year hopes and dreams that I have, because then I'll become even more cynical than I already am. Would definitely have to be coming out to my mom 2 months ago, which was very hard. She and I are speaking still. It's like having a long conversation debating your right to exist. But I feel as though this work that I'm doing with my mom is going to pay off in the long run. I don't know if acceptance is on the table. I don't even know if tolerance is on the table. But I know that we're working in a place where we don't want to stop communicating with each other. And that's all I asked for as a little girl. Like, I never imagined, as 5-year-old Camille would imagine that I'd be out at 23 to my parent, well, to my mom at least. So I don't know if I'll ever have a prouder moment than right then and there when I had the courage to do that, because it's a decision I go back and forth with in my head if I did the right thing, because of the aftermath, because of the constant back and forth all these months later. Over the course of our fight for equality, specifically marriage equality, the issue of coming out has been like forced, almost emphasized in the gay community. And as someone who's recently come out, I wish that some people just didn't have to. I look at the example of Niecy Nash and her wife, who recently got married. I don't know if you know. Niecy Nash divorced her husband and shortly after met her wife, and they dated, and then they married in secret, and then just made a big Instagram announcement, and everyone was calling it Niecy Nash's coming out. But the fact is, I don't know how Niecy Nash identifies. She's an actress, Emmy nominated, like top tier actress. She doesn't need to. And I feel like that's what the emphasis is on coming out. Is being out means that you have to all of a sudden become the pillar of gay representation or queer representation. And some people just don't want to do that. Some people just want to live their lives and love on their partner, or just do whatever they want. They don't have to tell you, they don't have to disclose. And this was an idea that really put it in perspective for me, was watching Disclosure on Netflix. And it's this idea that disclosing who we are, who we love to somebody else puts the onus on them to accept us. And it shouldn't matter, because when people turn 13, they don't say, hey, mom, by the way, I'm straight. Like, everyone just assumes. So what I want to happen is people to stop, like I said, in 10 years, people to stop coming out, and people to stop assuming that everyone is straight, stop assuming everybody is cis, and just accept the person for who they are. And that whoever they choose to be with, whatever gender they choose to be, it does not matter. It literally is just about you celebrating humanity, regardless of how they present in their humanity. And coming out, it doesn't, it literally, it's for you. Yes, it is. But at some point, you're starting to look at how other people move around you just because you came out, when you could have just existed and did your own thing and lived your own life and had fun while doing it. And people come to their own conclusions about it. But as long as you know what and who you are, you don't need to open a closet door to do that. You can just shine and just eliminate the whole room. Just don't even come, just abolish the closet and just exist in the room as you are. That's it.